I was real active as a teenager, and I held a lot of different callings in the church, but I always had a firm belief in our Father in heaven and his friendliness and this sort of thing. And I wanted to go on a mission. But my dad had 5 kids and money was a little short, and there was a rule out you should be 19. And so I thought, well, I'll work a year or two, and then I'll go on a mission. So I got a job on the railroad. They were putting in what they called CTC, Centralized Traffic Control. And it meant that from Reno to Ogden would be controlled by a central office. But we had to string telephone poles and wires and stuff for 530 miles. I walked that whole distance climbing poles, but maybe I walked it 4 or 5 times, because you'd walk up and dig a hole. And what was fun is when we got into a mountain and it was rock, and we got to dynamite the holes. We learned that dynamite blows up and cracks down, and we could make our charges 2 sticks or 3 or whatever we wanted. And it was fun, even walking that distance. But when I got that 2 years in, then I decided that I had enough money I could go on a mission. And so I turned my papers in, and at that time a general authority interviewed every missionary. And he called me and told me to come to Ely for this interview at a state conference, and to come early before conference started. So we went into a room, I got interviewed, and when we got all through, we walked out, and everybody was excited and talking, and we says, well, what's going on? And they says, well, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor and we're at war with Japan. And so I told Apostle McKay that had interviewed me that maybe I better join the Army and instead. And he says, well, that's good, but go on a mission when you get home. And so I said, okay. And well, I figured I had to do my share, so I went down and volunteered for the Air Force. I wanted to be a pilot. And I passed their tests, and they said, now we have a 6 months waiting period. And we'll let you know when it comes by. Well, here, about 3 or 4 months later, I got a card that says greetings. Well, you know right immediately what that means. It's a draft notice. So I called, went down to the draft board and told them about it. I'm already in the Air Force. No, you're not. We're got a quota to make, and you're part of that quota. And so I had to report to Salt Lake for induction. And I kept getting letters all the way through the war for the next 3 years. You report to this air base. And even when I was overseas, I'd get these letters. And I wrote and told them, I says, I can't, I'm in the Army. And they'd say, well, get your commanding officer to sign a release. But he wouldn't. He says, you're too important, which doesn't mean anything. Just means they don't want to give an answer. And but I had always had this feeling of, love for my Father in heaven, and a knowledge that he would watch out for a person, that he made promises. And the apostle said I was going to come home in a good enough shape, all body parts still in place, so I could go on a mission. And of course, that afternoon, I sustained him as a prophet, seer, and revelator. And so I ended up in the service, the Army.